everybody. Oh, no, we
Smooth
got to look
jazz
at
intro.
ourselves. All right.
Yeah, we don't have to.
Okay.
We just have the quiet. We're here. We're going to do some live streaming for the next couple hours because the Senate Democrats have decided to protest the nomination of Russell Vought, Project 2025 author, who is nominated by Trump to be his budget director at the Office of Management and Budget. And you know what? Senate Democrats, they've had enough, guys. They had enough.
They've hit their limit.
They've hit their limit. So it does appear like Vought has the votes.
Nope.
It's not going to be the first time we deal with that.
Nope.
We have to do that. But anyway, it appears that he's going to get confirmed, but you can slow down the process and make the Republicans eat up a bunch of floor time, and Senate Democrats are all going to give speeches about this. They're making it a big deal. Our pal Brian Schatz from Hawaii called us last week and said, hey, a bunch of senators want to come on and make this a big deal, talk to you guys, talk to all your listeners. And
Sounded like content to us.
and sounded like content to us, so here we are.
Shots fired.
And
Here
Russ
we
Vought
go.
sucks.
Yeah, Russ Vought
Vought
does
very
suck.
bad.
He's a real asshole.
Yeah, he's the one who was in a Project 2025 video saying that every federal worker should be traumatized, should feel
Miserable and
traumatized
scared, yeah.
every day they come to work, so they all quit. And I guess it's working because 30,000 of them have apparently taken the fake buyout that Elon.
I have
offer
friends who are like debating whether to take the buyout, and it's like, do I take this thing? Am I gonna get fired the next day if I don't take it and regret having not taken it? Then you read the fine print. The fine print says like, we can not pay you, and there's nothing you can do.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like getting a free T-shirt that is really signed up for a credit card. Yeah, I think there's also the CIA buyout, which is just
What's
putting
going on
all
there?
the names of the most recent CIA officers in an unclassified email. So the
I can't
Russians
And those
believe
people,
that.
those people like
Chinese
getting a
have
lot
it.
of attention, right?
Like, just to be serious for 1 second, it is genuinely shocking that the CIA staff would put in an unclassified email the names of hundreds, maybe thousands of CIA employees. Apparently, it was like last name, first initial, or something like that. But the Chinese
Well,
will figure this out. The
No one's
Russians-
clever enough to get to the other side of that that code.
I mean, they just blew the cover of so many people. It's
There's
crazy.
such a there's a like it sucks to live through it, but to just see the way in which like the like incompetence, the clownishness, and the cruelty kind of go hand in hand, because it's like, are they cutting off HIV drugs on purpose? Are they doing it by accident? Are they doing it on purpose but just don't care and don't realize the consequences? And you just see this all over the place. Like, are they putting that in email because they don't know better, or do they know better and want these people to be pushed out? We just don't know.
Yeah.
It's probably some combination and different motivations for everybody, but it's disgusting.
Yeah, like, is Elon Musk and his team of Doge nerds, are they taking control of the whole federal government and all the spending, or did they just find on a public website that some government employees were subscribing to Politico?
Right.
We're
Which
really
is
mad
right.
about Politico
Scandal.
for
Right.
today.
Yeah.
Today is a big Politico day.
Pro is not the, and it's just, again, it's like, hey guys, look, you want to cut the HHS's Political Pro subscription? You can have at
Look,
it.
if I found out a bunch of crooked employees were spending $7,000 a year on Politico Pro, I'd look at that line item in the budget for sure. But I think
Hear that,
that's just-
everybody?
But
A lot of sweat on brows.
John's
in
got a visor, and he's not afraid to use it.
but I don't know if I would then say that this is the evidence of a shadow government in the making, and that Politico and New York Times are doing the bidding of the shadow government all over the world thanks to USAID.
And the irony of Benny Johnson getting the most worked up about this is a little rich when he was quite recently caught taking money from the Russians. Remember that Tenet Media
They're good
story?
now. We
It's
like the
hundreds of thousands of dollars from Russians to make YouTubes.
Tommy, what do you think about the new
Lovett.
Trump properties
Oh.
in that
Gaza.
they're going to build in Gaza?
Yeah, it's
That was a wild one yesterday.
pretty-
You just finished Pod Save the World recording. We all start watching this press conference. We're like half watching it, doing our stuff, and all of a sudden he's like, "And we will control Gaza."
The U.S. It was unbelievable.
well, I mean, yeah, the ethnic cleansing part, that was bad. But then a U.S. military occupation of the Gaza Strip, what could go wrong? You know, it's nothing, no U.S. military occupation in the Middle East has ever had a problem, so I'm sure it'll be fine.
I guess they're going to fund that with the money they save from the Politico Pro prescriptions. prescriptions.
A lot of pros to work out of the system.
Just sort of classic Democrats. They don't want us to invade Greenland. They don't want us to invade Panama. They don't want us to occupy Gaza. Okay, we get it. You hate Trump. Where are you for invading? Where are you
Canada,
for
51st
occupying?
state.
Okay, where's our positive
That's-
vision?
Yeah, we're looking at 4 extra states, at least.
Yeah, could we just take
Panama.
all of Panama? We're going to send our prisoners to El Salvador. That's the other thing that we learned
Oh yeah,
this week.
American prisoners perhaps.
American citizens, yeah.
Americans. Trump said he'd love to if it's legal. It's not.
It just simply
He
can't
would
be.
love to deport American citizens who are in jail, like the worst criminals, which I guess he gets to decide who the worst criminals are.
It's an interesting sort of twist on the gulag, right? It's sort of like
Transnational
yeah,
gulag.
it's just sort of like you're not stuck in the country, you're stuck outside of the country. It's an interesting way to throw people away.
Well, it's also at the risk of explaining too much nerdy shit when you guys don't
Please
care.
do. No.
Nayib
We have
Bukele.
2 hours.
Well, hey, let's see what he has to say.
Hey guys, we have Senator Warren
Oh.
in the chair. You guys ready to go?
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, that Tommy's
All right.
thing will be a cliffhanger for after.
Elizabeth Warren, how are you doing?
I'm in the fight. That's how I'm doing. I've been on the
I
floor
like it.
for an hour, and I am fired up on this. This is it. We got to call this stuff out. And I just spent time talking about, he does those pictures with the executive orders. You've seen the shot.
Yeah.
Where he mugs for the camera, and you can see the big Donald Trump signature that's done in large crayon. He's so proud of those executive orders, at least some of them. And then there are these executive orders that get done in the middle of the night. And so I spent some time talking about that because that is part of the plan. Look here at the shiny object. Are we going to rename the Gulf of Mexico? Are we going to make Canada the 51st state? And then right under, right, we're going to stop payments. That one at least made it into the daylight. But let's shut down more and more access to abortion all across the country. Let's do these things that just slide under.
What are your favorite secret EOs? What are some of the ones we don't know about? What are some of the best secret EOs?
Okay, so he did an EO. We've had a law for a long time. It's called FACE law. And it's a federal law that's designed to protect women who are trying to walk from a parking lot to, say, a Planned Parenthood office. And what had started happening is that anti-abortion protesters would swarm in. Can you think about what this is like? And make it really impossible for them to get there. And they would be there all day long. And so federal law was passed a long time back. Said, no, you can't do that. You've got to have some space. And there's been some back and forth with the courts. And basically, how much you got to back up and let people be able to just walk through. Because maybe they're going for an abortion, maybe they're going for a mammogram, maybe going for other kinds of testing. And Donald Trump signs an executive order in the middle of the night, no fanfare, that just says, move back in on those women.
Senator Warren, that's terrible. Hey, I just want to be clear. I fucking hate that. Two questions for you. So first, there's been this sort of question as to sort of Democrats are making a big fuss about what these guys are doing illegally at USAID, but that's in some ways a trap because foreign aid isn't popular. And I want to ask this in two ways. The first question, just what is the way to talk about it? I mean, that's sort of an indictment, right? Maybe it is a trap, but it's a shame that trying to defend the Constitution and say, hey, this is illegal, is a trap. So my first question is just, what is the best way to talk about some of these illegal ways they're kind of usurping congressional power, even when it does revolve around something that may not be as popular like aid to foreign countries?
So I think part of it is you've got to make the aid real. So one of the consequences of what they did is that the training for the anti-terrorists just came to a stop. And all the guns that had been seized from some of these groups are just left unguarded. You think that makes America any safer? But the point I would make pretty quickly is if they can do that, then guess what's next on the agenda? Because this is a place you really have to make the slippery slope argument. If they can shut down USAID and get away with it, then next up is your kid's elementary school or the funding that the kids with special needs are getting so that they can go to elementary school. And if they can do that, then what's next on the agenda and what's next on the agenda and what's next on the agenda? I don't know. Is it a bridge project? in Massachusetts that's already underway? Is it your grandpa's Social Security check because he went on X and dissed Elon Musk because your grandpa's an old cranky guy? It's it's really putting it in the context of there are important things they did here. But anybody who thinks they stop here has completely missed the point. This is the front end of the wedge. And you gotta stop them and say they have to obey the law, not just some of the time, but all of the time.
And then second question, so Starbucks has a new policy where they make the baristas write a message on every cup. My cup says, "Don't forget to smile." Is there anything that you could do to stop that? Is there anything the CFPB could do if it had a real leader again?
Oh yeah, speaking of that, what's going on with the do you know what's going to become of the
Well, she has to answer my Starbucks question first. I'm kidding.
I know,
I'm
trying
kidding.
to get it right.
Okay. We're getting the Starbucks one. We'll work on that one. But so the CFPB, Scott Bessent, the new Secretary of the Treasury, has done two things so far as Secretary of Treasury. First one is that he opened the door and said to Elon Musk and a handful of whoever knows, come on in and just mess around in the $6 trillion financial payments system. What could possibly go wrong? Do what you want to do. Maybe you're in there changing payments. I don't know. Maybe you're in there changing the records. I don't know. Maybe you're in there building back doors so you can just come back later when you want to. Maybe you're in there just taking pictures, read only, of all of the personal financial information of everybody in the United States. Maybe that's all you're doing. And while you're at it, maybe you're leaving the door open so that Iran gets in behind you, or North Korea, or just some black hat guy who's figured out that's how he's going to become a billionaire. So that was Scott Bessent's job number one. Job number two
Did
is
you
now
get
to
any
be.
answers? Did you get any answers from him
Oh,
on?
I
know you
did.
asked him why he did that. Did you get a response?
I did. So we got an answer back today, and the answer said, "Don't worry, it's everything's under control here." I felt totally not reassured by the answer. In fact, even within the answer itself, it says the only people who are doing this, it's a Treasury employee. Then you read two paragraphs later, it says, well, it's this guy who just came in, but he has a lot of experience, and he's a special employee. And I love special people, but not this time. And you know, I want to say this. It's like you just sit here, and I know we all talk about this. You don't want to be the one who's paranoid. You don't, right?
Yeah.
But I'm really serious when I say this gives Elon Musk the power to turn on and turn off, like playing a piano, you know, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, wherever you want to go. It is impoundment, that word we've been talking about, where they say we're just not going to give any money to AID, but it's now at a much more granular level. And isn't that sexier? Because it really can mean, not for Democrats, or not for people who popped off to Elon Musk, or not for people who live over here or complained of there. Talk about a way to try to terrorize a population. It's a stunner. And Scott Bessent, who's never been in government, far as I know, has no skills in this area, is told to let Elon Musk in and says, hi guys, you know, just lets them right in. And one more part about this, when I talk about this, it's all the payments. I don't know what kind of information Elon Musk is collecting. I mean, does anybody know what he's copying and collecting? How much risk it builds into the system? But all of this, guys, we're just a little over a month out from running out of money. And when you get down to the last little bits before you run out of money, you're in what are called extraordinary measures. And that's where the thingamabob gets moved over to the ziggy-wob, you know, so you can accelerate the payment over here and do the thing over there, so that we have a smooth flow of funds. And that means when you cash your check that is written on a government account, it really does clear. That's what we do to make that happen. And it gets really dicey in the last weeks while Congress is over here diddling around about trying to get the debt limit raised or more funding in or whatever it is. They just got rid of the guy who knows how to do that. because he's a long-time career civil servant, good guy, served under Democrats, under a Republican. He is like totally apolitical, makes a real point of that. Everybody's kept him on before now, and he's worked his way through Treasury. He's like the guy who knows how the inner workings of this work, and he just there to serve the country. And when Scott Bessent says, let Musk and his little buddies in, this guy said no, and he got shown the door. So now the guy who knows how to keep everything running is no longer there. You've got a car zooming around the racetrack, and it's starting to get a little smoky and throwing out a few sparks, and the mechanic who knows how to keep it running under difficult circumstances, he's just been ushered out of the stadium. So
it's just a de facto line item veto. I mean, this feels like something that we know is unconstitutional.
I'm going to take your point though and make it much finer. Line item veto was what they were doing last week, in effect, by saying not that agency, not that program, no more money under the Inflation Reduction Act. That is a line item. This one is so much more granular than that, and therefore creates so much more power. Because it's not, for example, that you'd have to say no more infrastructure for anybody. You could just say no more infrastructure for states that didn't vote for me. No more infrastructure for people out of line.
Can I ask you a question? Speaking of just not being, not having people in there that know how to follow the rules or implement anything, if somebody in your life, if a loved one of yours had gotten this proposal that they could take the buyout and leave their job in the government, and they're saying, I'm afraid that if I take this, they'll never pay me and I'll have no recourse, and I don't want to work for these people. I also want to stay and fight. But at the same time, I'm worried that if I don't take it, they're going to fire me Monday and I'll have regretted it for the rest of my life because I don't have the money to support my family. If somebody you loved was thinking about whether or not to take this buyout proposal, what would you tell them?
So look, I want to be really clear. I can't give advice to people, and I don't want to give advice to people. But understand, if you decide to stay and fight and they fire you anyway, don't beat yourself up over this. Because the idea that there is a guarantee that they really are going to follow through with that money and they really are going to let people stay for all of that time, boy, that is just not there. Here's the part that scares me, and it's not even part of your question. I worry a lot about people who raise their hands and say, okay, I'll leave, that they just painted a target on their own backs. So maybe they get the money, maybe they don't. But now Elon Musk, who's in charge, remember, of all the payments and everybody's social security number, where everybody lives, says, oh, that guy is not on our team. And that gal is not, and that one over there. So I just think this is an extraordinarily hard time for federal employees. And I get that this one is tough, but I got to say, I've had the same answer for everybody on everything. So it's not just the federal employees right now. It's please stay and fight.
Well, we are glad that you are staying and fighting, and we'll let you get back to the floor. Thank you, as always, Senator Warren, for coming on Pod Save America.
Take care.
I like the part where she took Tommy's point and made it better. Where she
made
said,
it
I'm going to make it
fine.
finer. She's like, the way you made it was blunt and bad, and I'm going to make it
like,
pointier. And that was cool.
Idiot.
This fucking dumbass thinks it's a line item veto. Kinda.
Kind of, bud. It was.
So, Tommy, you were in the middle of a point.
Was I?
Yeah.
About gossip.
Oh, about El Salvador.
And,
El Salvador.
We can ask, and we're going to have Chris Murphy next.
Well, here's
Okay.
what you need to know about Naib.
He's getting ready. So.
Naib Bukele is the president of El Salvador. He is popular because El Salvador had a terrible gang and violence problem, and he literally indiscriminately rounded up everybody, threw them in jail, and now they're surprisingly is less of a violence problem. But what he's done is created this mass incarceration state where you've suspended constitutional protections from people, so you can be thrown in jail for years without being charged. You can get charged in these mass arrests, mass trials is sort of the next phase. And now he's coming to the U.S. basically saying, I'll take your prisoners if you help me fund this prison state that I've set up for my little autocracy.
What a deal! So
Yeah,
Rubio said, "Absolutely, you got
Rubio's
it."
like, what an offer.
Let's find out what
What do you
our
got,
next
Austin?
guest has to think about says about this. We have Senator Chris Murphy.
Why don't we kick it off with that?
Is he here?
I think the news here is that Elizabeth Warren just avoided the whole Starbucks question.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
I have to tell you something.
you let her get away with that.
I didn't forget to smile. You know, that's the thing. I didn't forget.
Senator Murphy, you're a foreign policy wonk. What did you make of Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador, offering to take U.S. citizens from U.S. jails and incarcerate them down in El Salvador for a small fee to prop up this transnational gulag that he has created to fund his autocracy? Meanwhile, the IMF is coming in and asking him to, cut in certain places. So they're firing teachers and healthcare workers and expanding the military. Does it seem like someone we should get into bed deeper with?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's consistent with the entire theory of operation for Trump's foreign policy, is that we are going to piss off and pick fights with democracies. We're going to get deeper in bed with dictatorships and autocracies to normalize dictatorships and autocracies, because that is where we're headed domestically. And so if you convince Americans that there's less to fear from despots in this hemisphere or in Beijing or in Moscow, then all of a sudden maybe you'll feel a little bit less afraid about the creeping autocracy, oligarchy, kleptocracy, whatever ninth grade social studies term you want to use, that we apply to what's about to happen to our government if we don't stand up and fight like hell.
Senator, why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on the floor right now? I know you guys are protesting the nomination of Russ Vought for OMB. I know he probably has the votes, but what are you all hoping to achieve right now?
So Russ Vought is essentially the architect of Project 2025. He sort of has the master plan in his pocket to convert a democracy to something very different. All of the things that you're seeing right now, whether it be the seizure of federal funding, the attack on immigrants, the shutdown of USAID, a lot of it comes out of Russ Vought's brain. Now, he's not a well-known name, and I think he likes it that way. So we thought it was really important to stay up all night tonight, to be on the Senate floor through the evening to tell the story of how this is not all accidental. This is a plan to essentially let the billionaire class seize control of government so that ultimately they can steal from us. That's what's happening. Musk is taking control of the payment system of the Department of Treasury based upon Russ Vought's plan, so that they can cut our Social Security benefits, they can withhold our refunds in order to save money so that they can afford a giant tax cut for billionaires and corporations. So yeah, we're not going to stop his nomination, but what you see out there is the public waking up to the theft that is occurring. And they're starting to show up in really big numbers. And so we wanted to make sure that we are raising the alarm here, and we are using every hour that we have available to us tonight to tell the story of what's happening at USAID, at Treasury, at the Department of Labor, at the Department of Education, the wholesale shutdown of government functions that matter to regular people so that they can steal your money in order to fund big giveaways to billionaires and millionaires. In order to do an overnight, though, you need to actually stay overnight. And so I got the 2 to 5 a.m. slots. So
Nice.
I'm hanging out with you guys, and then I'm going home and packing a slumber party bag and coming back and staying up all night.
And we went to the same college, but you went a few years before me. But I assume that means you know where to get cocaine.
We were maybe part of different crowds.
Okay.
At Don Jr. Senator, there is a lot of talk that these cuts to USAID and other domestic spending are an attempt to kind of cobble together some cash that the Republicans will pretend pays for the tax cuts down the road. But my understanding is that an extension of the 2017 Trump tax cut would cost something like $5 trillion over a decade. How on earth could you find enough cuts at USAID or any other domestic spending program to actually fund this? I mean, are Republicans, who do they think they're fooling here?
Yeah, listen, I think they are creating an illusion of cuts to a program that, let's be honest, is not the top priority for Americans. And so they spend all of their public relations time talking about their cuts to USAID so that people don't pay attention to the fact that really they are cobbling together as we speak $2 trillion of cuts to Social Security, to Medicare, Medicaid, and the Affordable Care Act. I also think there might be a simpler explanation for why Musk started with USAID. Remember, Musk makes half his cars in China. Many of his business interests have open issues with the Chinese government. The way that he remains a billionaire is for China to treat him well. What does China hate? USAID. USAID is a thorn in the side of China all around the world. It prevents them from commanding the kind of uncontested influence that they want. So, yeah, I think they're trying to create an illusion that they're saving money so that they can have a credible argument that they've paid for their tax cuts for billionaires and millionaires. But there also might just be a really basic corruption here that Trump is doing a wink, wink, nod, nod favor to the Chinese, and he hopes or has arranged for his companies to be treated favorably after USAID is shuttered.
Senator, we got one question from one of our subscribers. Obviously, the big point of leverage that you guys have is the government funding fight. This will come up in March. They also are going to need to raise the debt limit. Have there been conversations among Democrats about using that leverage to make sure that all of the illegal shit they're doing now, or at least suspect stuff that they're doing now, stops? And do you guys think you can get all the Democrats on board with not giving them the votes to keep the government going if they don't stop the shit we've seen in the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously talking about that right now as we speak. We've got to use all the leverage we have available to us. That's why we're, essentially not giving consent to any of these nominees. That's why we're not going to proceed to legislation in a normal way unless they get serious about stopping this corruption. But yeah, we have these two big pieces of leverage, both the budget and the continuing resolution, which expires, but then also the debt ceiling. They need to raise the debt ceiling in order to pass the tax cut for billionaires and millionaires. And hell no, Democrats should not give a single vote to raise the debt ceiling if the purpose of that is simply to give money away to Elon Musk and his friends. So, we're having discussions right now about how we exercise that leverage, but I am going to argue, especially on the question of the debt ceiling, that we do not entertain any offers from them if they are just using that money to shift dollars from regular, ordinary Americans to the billionaires.
All right, that sounds good. Senator Murphy, we'll let you go. I know you got to get home and get your sleeping bag and your Red Bull.
Yeah, Red Bull, sure.
Yeah, Red Bull. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Good to see you.
Red Bull.
Gives you wings. Gives you wings.
What else, guys? What do you think?
I think this is going well.
I like this. I'm having a good time.
Yeah.
I'm having a good time.
We're doing it. Do you want?
What do you want, Austin?
Want
You
to take
guys
some
want
more
to remind
questions?
viewers who are just joining us what we're doing here. Why are we live?
We're live because, as Chris Murphy just said, if you're just tuning in, the Senate Democrats have decided to protest the nomination of Russ Vought for OMB director. The Republicans have tried to advance the nomination on the floor, but you get a bunch of time before you hit cloture, which is how you proceed to the final vote. And Democrats have decided to use every minute of that time to talk about what a disaster Russ Vought would be for the country. Project 2025 author, sort of right-wing Christian nationalist kook in general. He's sort of outlined a lot of plans to just shutter all the agencies, which I guess he didn't even have to get confirmed yet. Elon Musk is doing his job for him, but yeah, that's what they're all doing. So we're going to talk to some of them. We already talked to Senator Warren, we talked to Senator Murphy. Who knows who might come next?
Yeah, and least of all us.
It's going to be a surprise. We do have a question.
Okay.
If Trump does not obey Congress or the courts, what can be done? What's the recourse?
So let's see, in 1776.
It's
Yeah.
an autocracy.
Yeah, well, you kind of hit the two big places where you kind of hope you'd face some face some headwinds.
And then history tends to show that the guys with the guns do well in those situations. So.
So here's what I do think, though. I think that we should not get comfortable in advance or assume in advance that courts won't try to stop him or that Congress won't. Look, obviously, I have very, very low expectations for this Congress. I'm also deeply nervous about what happens when we crash through certain barriers, like the barrier of what happens when there's a court order that Trump feels obliged to disregard and just go through with what he was going to do anyway, or what happens when, say, there's a debt ceiling fight and Democrats and Republicans can't come to an agreement. House Republicans walk away because it doesn't do enough to cut spending, and all of a sudden Trump is facing a debt crisis and decides to abuse his office to spend money that he shouldn't be allowed to spend legally. Like, there's a lot of places where you can see how Trump could
Mint the coin.
Right. Well, something that a lot of Democrats had wanted, which was to have a president be able to ignore Congress. So that's interesting how that keeps coming back to bite us. But like, we should not presume. Like, courts have already stepped in to say that what Trump is doing by shutting down various spending without congressional permission is illegal. The Trump administration itself backed off by withdrawing certain orders of the DOJ, then put out a statement saying really they weren't actually blocked by the courts. It gets a little bit complicated, but like, all in all, let's not be surprised by expecting Trump to have more power than he already does. He already has plenty. We shouldn't give him more without a fight.
And your surprise senator is ready to join you guys.
Who we got?
Let's find out who it is. Oh,
Shots. There he is. This was
You
your
guys actually
idea. You
like-
happy with yourself?
You guys actually don't know who it is until the screen pops up? Like,
No. That we were
Like
sent a rundown, but
We have a rundown, but it was-
we had some other things
I
to
don't
do.
fucking read in advance of this stuff. What are you talking about? How are you?
Hey, I'm Brian Shots from Hawaii. Nice to meet you all.
Great to see you.
How's it going on
Aloha.
the floor right now?
It's going great. You know, my goal, obviously the bigger goal is to make sure that everybody understands what's at stake in terms of this guy, Russ Vought, and his illegal actions. And they're illegal, but they're also just deeply harmful. I just read that a bunch of healthcare facilities are still not operational from the federal funding freeze in the state of Virginia. You know, Washington State still has Head Start frozen. Most of our stuff is flowing in Hawaii, but not all of it. So it's really damaging people, you know, and it's also illegal. And so the reason we want to talk about Russ Vought is that this dude has a very specific view of the Office of Management and Budget, which is like, he thinks he's going to be the king's hand, man. Like, if you look at what he wrote in Project 2025, it's that the OMB director should be vested with the full authority of the president in all matters. And it's like it's kind of a weird thing to say, but then it's like, well, if I could write a document that was basically like, there should be a really all-powerful position, and how about if it were me? And so that's what this guy is. He's going to be extremely powerful and really do damage, not just to programs, right? Not just to agencies, but to people across the country.
We're like OMG, right? Is there a group dinner order? Who puts it in? Do you debate it on like a group text? Like, how does this work for tonight?
I made the call because I paid for it.
Nice.
So it's pizza, and you're welcome to have it. Otherwise, make other arrangements. And tomorrow morning is bagels.
Okay.
Wow.
Cool.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Carb heavy, but
That's
you
great.
do you.
I like that. This is what we're getting.
And
That's it.
Hawaii grown coffee. Yeah, Hawaii grown coffee.
Nice.
Oh, that's nice.
Can I ask, like, have you guys been having what are the conversations with some of your Republican colleagues been like these last couple of weeks, especially this week? Are you getting a lot of, this is kind of bad, but I don't really want to speak up, or maybe it's not that bad, or are you guys even talking? Like, I know you guys got a couple Republican votes on opposing Pete Hegseth, but otherwise they've all fallen in line. Thought maybe we'd get Bill Cassidy or on RFK Jr. or Young on Tulsi, but didn't get any of that. So
Well, McConnell's fallen in line and then fallen in a few other places.
okay, so what are some of the conversations you're having?
No, I'm sorry. That was just, no, he did not dignify that correctly. Sorry. We're live. John, your question.
Look, I have had lots of conversations with Republicans like every day. And there is a sort of obviously a range. Like, I don't talk to the people who clearly don't give a shit. I'm not like sitting down with Tuberville and going like, hey.
I was going to say, yeah, he can't speak English barely. So.
But I am talking to a lot of Republicans, and they're super, super nervous and I think slightly embarrassed as to what's happening. I think it's plainly obvious that whatever private reservations they're willing to express to me or even to the administration, they're not at the sort of mental and political state where they think they really that they're at the edge. And so I thought maybe, like you said, I thought maybe some of these cabinet nominees were in danger, and I think it's a good reminder for us that Republicans are not going to save us. Maybe 2 months from now, some of this stuff gets even more nutty, and there may be a few of them that stand up for democracy itself and the rule of law. But I just don't think that's a viable strategy. I mean, the way I'm looking at this is we have to try to see if we can get Republicans to help us. And we have to help to cultivate, not personally, but help to cultivate, interact with, and participate in a mass citizen movement on behalf of the United States of America. And you and many others, Indivisible, and lots of organizations and lots of individuals are doing their job there, because no fight against autocracy can succeed without people power. So one of the things that I think is really super encouraging over the last week is people showing up in person places, right? Not just online complaining, not just like theater criticism of like what Democrats should or shouldn't be doing, and some of it's valid and some of it's nonsense. But that's not the point. The point is, if we want to actually grow our power, we have to show up physically, peacefully, passionately, all across the country, in Washington, D.C. for sure, but all across the country. And then we have some leverage in the legislative context, but not a ton of it. And I think part of what we have to do is A, use every piece of leverage that we have, B, be honest about the limitations, right? They're going to get their cabinet, and we can gum up the works a bit, but like, I mean, someone was like tweeting at me, or Blue Sky posting, I don't know what we're supposed to call that.
They were skeeting at
Skeeting
you.
at
Don't go
you,
on
yeah.
there, yeah.
I'm not doing skeeting. Anyway, someone was like, demand a quorum call. And like, we did demand a quorum call today, and it was an 11-minute delay. Like, that's not, I'm not saying we shouldn't do whatever we can to gum up the works, but this idea that there's some magic procedural obstruction button that we can press, it doesn't exist anymore. The filibuster does not exist for the cabinet. And so our options are limited. We are using every option we have. But we have to understand this period of time is probably going to be, especially painful, because they don't need Democrats for anything right now. But there will come a time later this calendar year, later this fiscal year, where they have to pass bipartisan legislation. And that's where we're not without our leverage. And I know you're all good journalists, and you're going to ask, okay, what are you going to do? What are you going to demand? And I'm just not going to broadcast that yet.
We weren't.
That-
we actually didn't think about that.
That wasn't my question. As a theater critic who just penned 1,000 words on Chuck Schumer, I'd like.
You're looking at Statler and Waldorf here.
What I wanted to ask you about is honestly like expectations management, because as you know, we Democrats like to yell at each other even when we have little to no power, and unfortunately that's the situation we're in. Republicans control everything. They have decent-sized majorities, so they're going to get things passed, especially the cabinet, as you said. But so help the audience understand kind of what you can do, what they can expect, what fights we should be picking and focused on, right? Because it is very annoying when you see Democrats just yelling at each other when Trump is controlling everything.
Yeah, I mean, like, for instance, what we're doing today is significant, right? We're taking the floor, we're holding the floor, we're going 30 hours, we're going overnight, because Russ Vought is particularly dangerous, right? I've also decided to place a blanket hold on all State Department nominees. But again, those are, elements of resisting the train that's coming, but like, it's not going to stop them from achieving the confirmation of all their cabinet. And so there are other points of leverage later on in the year, and we plan to exercise them. But I just think people across the country need to think not just in terms of what the 47 of us should be doing. And by the way, I think we should be doing more. And we have been doing more. I think this week we kind of found, or last week too, we've started to find our footing with the federal funding freeze. We've been winning in court. More and more people are showing up. And we're also kind of finding our, fighting form and uniting. I mean, that's the other part of this, is that to the extent that some members of the Democratic Senate caucus wanted to give the benefit of the doubt to a president who wants their new cabinet. And I understand, a lot of people object to that. But look, in order to get to 51 United States senators on the Democratic side, we're going to have a bunch of people who vote in ways that progressive Pod Save America listeners are going to find super irritating, right? If Joe Manchin were still here, if Bob Casey were still here, if Kirsten Sinema were still here, Chuck Schumer might be the leader. And you could be angry at them, but they still vote for Chuck Schumer for leader. And so we have to have a big enough tent to allow people to do their own politics. But I think what's happened is everybody's politics and everybody's conscience is starting to align and just say, you know what? I can't anymore. There's no reason to give these people the benefit of the doubt. Even if they say reasonable things, they all bend the knee when it comes to the pressure from the president of the United States. And so, like, for me personally, I voted for, Sean Duffy and some others that I thought were, at least nonpartisan.
He's a big road rules guy. He's a road rules guy.
Yeah.
That's where he got his experience to be transportation secretary.
Right.
It's
When
literally
I
a job
met him-
about road rules.
When I met him, I was like, yeah, I've always admired your work ever since I was 19. That's a real world marathon. Anyway, but he's a personable guy, and he basically promised me that he was going to do transportation in a nonpartisan way, and so I voted for him. But I'm now in a different stance. I do not plan on voting for any of the remaining cabinet nominees, and I think I'm not speaking for every single senator, but I think the movement is towards, I'm not sure any of these people deserve the benefit of the doubt.
All right. Well, we won't chase you out of the Senate like Lovett did too at Joe Manchin. So thank you so much, as always, for
I love Joe Manchin. I miss that guy.
for joining. And get back to the floor.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Take care.
Joe Manchin's like the lame uncle that still brings
All right.
an item to the family potluck.
We have our
Yeah.
next mystery
He
guest.
sucks. You don't want him there. But
Do you guys want to guess? Should I give you a hint?
Sorry, I'm trying to yes and Tommy.
I
You're
know,
talking.
wait, the next mystery guest. The next mystery guest has a hard out in 3 minutes.
Oh wow!
Okay.
All right, let's hear. Let's
So-
hear from our very busy mystery guest.
She ran for president.
Oh.
Oh,
she's not
then
there
we'll
yet.
do a
Vamp
okay,
again.
who you want to guess?
I know.
It's
It
like
sounds
20 questions.
I mean, it's Amy Klobuchar, I assume.
Yes, Amy Klobuchar. I thought that I had more. I didn't have as much time. I would have started. I would have started a
If
little
you lived in a
more
less
mysteriously.
misogynist country, that would have been a less good hint.
I mean, we already had one presidential candidate on, who's a woman.
That's right.
Wow, tough. Could have been Gillibrand.
All right, guys.
Who's the
We got the
misogynist
senator.
now?
Well, I'm just saying.
We have the senator. We're ready to go.
There we go.
There she is,
Finally,
Senator Klobuchar.
Hey,
Senator
I heard
Klobuchar,
that.
How are you?
good.
How's
I
it
heard
going?
you guys.
Oh,
You mean
good.
like all
Good. That's important.
candidates are alike? I was listening.
Oh no.
How are you?
How's the floor fight going?
Oh, good. I have the midnight time.
Oh,
Midnight.
too bad.
That's
Good
not
time.
bad. That's
Okay,
not
no,
bad.
it's good. It's good. I was remembering you, John, when you came to Minnesota. Do you remember that?
Uh-oh.
Yes.
What'd he
I
do?
did. Well, we got a little drunk on stage. It was good. We had a good time.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
I thought I was drinking water and it had something else in it.
Senator Klobuchar, you said to the New York Times, I think you were talking to Michelle Cottle earlier this week, we have to Americans want us to find common ground with the other side when we can. They want us to stand our ground when we have to, like when they're breaking the law. It's got to be really hard to balance that at this point because you've got a bunch of sort of illegal behavior going on with Elon Musk. You got your Republican colleagues, none of whom seem to care all that much. How do you work with Republican colleagues in this climate where Donald Trump, Elon Musk are just sort of breaking laws and trying to seize power?
It is very difficult because you keep wanting them to stand up and you're thinking, what's wrong with you? And then every so often, a few of them vote against, as happened with Pete Hegseth, where Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and of all people, Mitch McConnell, voted against him. And so you just keep pushing them. And I think some of this is just holding them accountable by making clear what's going on here. And that is my first purpose. I think we've got to make it really clear that the Congress doesn't bend to every whim of the executive branch. That's not how this was set up. And we have got to every single day remind the people of this country that Donald Trump is in office for another day and prices have not gone down. Prices haven't gone down. In fact, chaos has gone up and corruption's gone up and egg prices have gone up. And part of the strength of getting these Republicans to move with us is just not backing down when it comes to taking on this abused constitutional power grab that's going on right now.
I've heard you talk a little bit on TV about your limo ride with the Bidens and the Trumps on Inauguration Day.
It's good.
Can you give us just like one more tidbit, one more fun? I know you guys talked football.
Who are the Ox?
But there you are. So to make clear, I'm the only person, Jeopardy question, in history of America that's driven alone. It wasn't, my husband was with Melania and Jill. I was in a different car. I was in the car with just Joe Biden and Donald
Oh,
Trump.
wow.
And is that a kind of three seating across in the back situation where I assume you sit between
I
them?
know you're imagining something that you shouldn't, but it was.
No, I don't. What, you keep. I feel like you're using a lot of innuendo on this live stream that I just don't feel like is warranted.
Well, that's what I like it because it's live stream, so I can say anything I want to you. But it's you, and you can't cut it out. No, those two are across from me, and I will say for many of you ties to the West Coast there, my number one goal, which I brought up by myself to President Trump, and then in that car was to talk about the LA fires. And just because it was something that they'd been messing around with and still are. But I think that the fact that the Olympics are coming, there's these major world events coming to Los Angeles, and they're going to need help, and they can't mess around with that. So that actually was the one thing that I brought up, and we discussed his upcoming trip. We talked about, some football. And we talked about a number of other things, and they'll never invite me back to that car ride. That'll never happen again if I reveal it. But there was a cordial discussion that sadly was not reflected in how Trump treated Biden and Kamala Harris in that speech. And that's because I think he gets out in public and he says what he wants. And my point there was that we have three branches of government. That's why he was getting sworn in the Capitol and not in a gilded presidential palace like in some countries. And the power in that room, including the oligarchs and all of the electeds that were in there, doesn't come from that room. It comes from outside of that room. And that is whose energy is getting hardest right now, like we've never seen it before, to the point where they broke the telephone system in the Senate, which I personally enjoyed.
So are you starting the small talk? Is Biden starting the small talk? Is Trump I'm just who's filling the space? What are you worried about? One of them is so old. The other, you're not going to have this opportunity again. He's term limited. This car ride's an impossibility in the future. Tell us what the fuck happened.
Actually, that part of it was my moment alone. But in the White House, we were there for an hour. Ahead of time. Donald Trump did get me a Diet Coke. That happened at 8 a.m. And then we were also at the lunch, and I was able to talk about a few issues. So that was good because I sat between him and J.D. Vance. That also happened. But I think all of that aside, do not think for a minute that I don't understand what we're up against here. And we had a job that day. Every member of Congress, Bernie was sitting in the front row, not wearing his mittens. And we had to bring it inside, respect the wishes of the president. But given that it was 6 below in Minnesota that same day,
Minnesotans you love loving the cold.
But that was that day. We had a job to do. But ever since then, it's been one thing after another with the pardons of the violent criminals from January 6th. Some of these nominees, and I personally questioned Kash Patel, just shocked by some of the things he said, some of the things I think he's going to do. And that's what we're facing right now. But I just think for your listeners and the people that follow your incredible listenership, I think people need to know that we are in this. And I hope you see that tonight. We are in this all through this night, but we're in this day after day after day. And we're in this with litigation. I led a meeting this morning with the Attorney General of New York, Tish James, and a number of people that are working on the litigation, including from Democracy Forward. We're in it, and that's the courts. And you can already see some of these things that have been at least temporarily stopped. We're in it when we took this on publicly, including getting that order by the unnamed bureaucrat that Mr. Vought that we're opposing today was basically running it behind the scenes with his plan that Stephen Miller has admitted this is Vought's plan to freeze these funds, but we got that temporarily reversed. And now we also have to move on to oversight. Every single question we ask, every single thing we do in these hearings matters. It actually creates a record to take on this litigation and what you're going to see in the future for what they're going to do. So we are not naive, but we are completely energized to move forward and take this on. And when we are energized and do our best, I think then you see American people understand we're there for them and we're not just being boring at a hearing and telling old stories.
Never, we would never
Like
think
about-
that. Well, thank
like about car rides.
Yeah.
Thank
I'm not
you.
bored. I'm
Thank-
excited.
In my day, the one time.
Look, and I don't know what you said to Donald Trump about the fires, but
thank you.
He did just dump out a few reservoirs 3 hours north of here. As it's starting to rain here and the fires are contained, so mission accomplished.
I mean, he did say it was your idea. He said that was. He said
He
Amy
said, "This is
Klobuchar
me."
told me to open up the Central Valley spigot.
It's the Klobuchar plan.
Yeah.
Well, my daughter's out there now. She really likes it, so she's.
It's a great place.
We got to visit her. It's a great place. But I think he cares a lot about these big world events coming there, and that's fine.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
going to
Good.
be present
We'll take it.
during these things, and it matters. And if that's how you rise from the ashes, there you go.
There
But
you
he's
go.
got to care about the rest of the country and everything else we got to deal with right now.
True.
All right, Senator
happy.
Klobuchar, thank you for joining us as always, and good luck with the fight.
Okay, thank you. See you
Thanks,
later.
Senator. That was fun.
That was fun.
Got a little something out of her. We learned that there were 2 cars. I didn't know that before.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Nothing
Yeah,
on,
I
Now we
didn't
got to
know-
find out what he was saying to Melania. And the other
nothing on the
people-
aux, though.
I
Yeah.
think we got to talk to. Oh no, I thought. So was Doug in the other car?
I don't know where Doug was.
Dr. Biden probably won't talk to us.
No, I think we're having a tough time booking Dr. Jill Biden.
Yeah, it sounds like she's not thrilled about how
Yeah, I don't.
things went.
Yeah, I don't. I imagine that's a grudge that'll hold.
All right. How long till our next guest?
Well, guys, we've got 2,000 more people since we last told everyone why
Wow.
we're here. So why are we here?
We are here because the Senate Democrats are currently holding the floor to slow down the nomination of Russ Vought for OMB, Project 2025 author. As Brian Schatz called him, he thinks he's going to be the hand of the king.
I like that.
We have a
Hand of the
question
king.
from the audience about what holding the floor means.
Love it.
These are just talking and talking for like 30 hours.
Here's what happens. Usually, you can confirm cabinet nominees without a filibuster, as Senator Schatz told us. So Russ Vought does have the votes to be confirmed. But usually, when you know someone has the votes, you say, okay, we're gonna invoke cloture, which means that then everyone gets like some set of hours, 24 hours or whatever, to speak, to give speeches. And no one actually takes that because if they know that the vote's going to go through, they just say, all right, unanimous consent, let's move on to the vote. The Democrats are saying no unanimous consent. If you want to nominate this asshole and you're doing all this other illegal shit, we are going to use every minute of time to slow things down.
The core thing you need to understand about this is that in the Senate, there's a ton of rules that slow everything down. And for a very long time, there was a kind of bipartisan consensus that you didn't abuse those rules because otherwise nothing would happen. And so both sides would just say, all right, we unanimously agree we're not going to hold up this time. But any senator has the ability to slow down the Senate at any time. And so these Democrats are saying we're going to slow down the Senate and we're going to use all this time to draw attention to this, and that there are other ways, like Senator Schatz putting a hold on some of those cabinet officials and other nominations, not cabinet officials, but the other State Department nominations. He doesn't have the ability to stop that, but that's another way you have to call a vote to stop. All these things lead to votes. Votes take time. There are all kinds of rules. Now, Republicans can also obliterate those rules if they want. And both Democrats and Republicans, when they've been in power, have been slowly making those rules less powerful. But right now, Democrats have the ability to slow a lot of stuff down.
All right, you guys ready to go to Senator Mark Warner?
Okay.
All right.
Hey
Senator
guys,
Warner, how are you?
that was a great Senate Rules 101.
Ooh.
I was here
Wow.
2 years before I knew that stuff.
We still got it. Well, we worked in the Senate when you first came to the Senate, or roughly around that time.
That's right.
So
I
now
wouldn't know
there's been a lot of controversy about the fact that you made a warm tuna sandwich in the microwave. And what was horrifying to me is not just that you did it, and shame on you, but that it was then used as an example of how Democrats could succeed on social media. So I feel like that's 2 strikes against you, and one more, this whole stream getting shut down.
20 million on the grossest tuna melt sandwich ever. It may mean that I have to now go in my next campaign to every Wawa across Virginia and see if I can mirror that kind of diet. But, whatever it takes.
Who was the senator that was trying to tell you how to make it the right way? Was it Kamala Harris?
It was Kamala Harris. And I said, was a little fancy because she had like a very fancy bread, and she literally drained the tuna before you just put it on sloppy. She didn't use as much mayonnaise as I did. And I was
I'm
like,
sorry,
"That's
did you just
because-"
invent a term called "put it on sloppy"? Yuck.
You're
Tommy, do you have a
talking
real
to the
question?
senator. Where's your Senate outfits on?
Yeah.
Senator Warner, I have a question for you. You've led the Senate Intelligence Committee for many years. I saw a story in the New York Times today that a bunch of these Trump clowns who were installed over at the CIA sent an email with the name and initial of everyone who had been hired at the CIA over the past 2 years, I believe, on the unclassified server. And I was just wondering what your reaction was to that from a counterintelligence perspective, knowing how much access the Russians, the Chinese, I don't know, the Israelis, the French, like name whatever foreign intelligence services have had to our unclassified comms for many years now.
My reaction was, holy crap. I mean, it takes, just to get into the CIA, takes normally a year to get through the security classification. You then got to go to the farm. You got to get trained up. These were folks that were relatively new. And they say, well, it's just the first name and the last initial. Well, you can go back and do data searches to figure out who those folks are. It was just sloppy. The one thing you learn that I'm not sure the Trump crowd understands is there's a reason why we have classified secrets. There's a reason why I believe Edward Snowden's a traitor. The fact that the potentially new director of national intelligence can't say that, I think is disqualifying. And my fear, again, one of the things I've been trying to get to the bottom of is these couple of the Doge boys who are over at Treasury, not looking at the programs, but literally looking at the $1.3 billion or 1.3 billion checks being sent out.
Mm-hmm.
You want to go to a program, have at it. That's a fair fight. But why do you need this information? And God forbid we send out something that says U.S. government gives $10 million to company XYZ. There are certain things that we try to hide that are in a classified area. I think there is this kind of reckless disregard of protecting our national secrets, and that's not going to make our country any safer.
There's been a lot of talk about, politically, maybe most Americans aren't so worried about, federal workers and bureaucrats losing their jobs. You're senator from Virginia. Are you hearing from folks back home that are just outraged right now and really worried about losing their jobs?
But the notion that, you like in some kind of 1960s movies where there's like rows of desks of federal workers, all in white shirts and striped ties, that just isn't what the federal workforce. Federal workforce literally hasn't grown in size for like 60 years. And the federal workers are the folks who are actually the air traffic controllers. The federal workers are the folks that are the park rangers at our national parks. They're the folks that inspect our food. You want salmonella. You want to drive up the price of eggs more. I thought Trump was going to lower the price of eggs. You get rid of the folks who do the bird flu inspection. And it's just kind of crazy. And then what they're also doing is with these buyouts, where I got to tell you, they got no money for those buyouts. The whole federal government's got to be refunded on March 14th, I believe is the date. And does anybody really believe that Donald Trump, who's never met a contract in his life, is going to pay these federal workers 8 months of severance pay for doing nothing? And today, you'll go back to the intelligence stuff. The CIA offered everybody in the CIA this buyout. One, I think it's illegal. Two, I don't think there's money. But do you really want not your analyst, but your best spy to take that? Or go to the NSA, which does our cyber work. These guys could make 10x in the private sector. But if they say, heck, I'm going to cash it in and get out, you can't replace that person with just another Doge boy coder. I just feel like there is a frivolous attitude towards the work that our federal workers do. And we all want to stand up for our men and women in the military, and amen to that. But what about the men and women who are on an intelligence committee? What about the men and women who do that inspection? What about the fact that we're already 3,000 air traffic controllers down? And we had a great tragedy in Washington last week, and Tim Kaine and I have been saying for years, don't put any more airplanes at National Airport. It's already the most crowded runway in America. But that's what our federal workers do. And if even you then say, okay, well, I still don't really care that much. What about the federal freeze? Well, that's just not federal workers. I got Head Start programs in Virginia where they supposedly took off the freeze, but they haven't got any money yet. I got community health centers that are shutting down and pushing people out, and there's about 480,000 Virginians get their health care through that. So this is chaos on steroids. I think we all expected that he was going to do a lot. I expected a flood. I didn't expect to get a tsunami. But they are trying to do so many things at once to try to take the American people's attention off. I think people are starting to fight back. We had probably 800 people today concerned about USAID. I think there are protests all over the country. People need to step up and stand up. And what I say to so many of I was a business guy for a long time. I think the business community is trying to keep their head low and think this is going to pass them by. Or local elected officials. I'll keep my head down. Well, as you freeze all these programs, at least at this point, they're not discriminating between blue areas and red areas. Or if you're a business, you're all going to get whacked by these tariffs. So I do hope through whatever means we can get out this word that people realize there's so much on the line real time. Tonight, the battle is over Russ Vought, who was the author of Project 2025, the guy who, the project that Trump said he never read, didn't know anything about, yet every one of those parts of that plan is being put into process right now.
Senator, you mentioned earlier, your concern about the DOJ guys kind of rooting around at the Treasury Department, looking at kind of line item payments. Is the point you're trying to make that there are components of, say, the military budget or the intelligence community budget that are classified that you think that they could be gaining access to without authorization? Or can you sort of explain there the risk that you're mentioning?
Yeah. First of all, we don't know for sure because this is a operation that has been purely a fiscal payout. You want to complain about a program, go up to the program. This is just the paymaster. Mm-hmm. And it's been kind of classic, independent, non-political people for decades on it. Trump didn't go after it the first time, Obama didn't, Bush didn't, Biden didn't. Suddenly you've got, the DOJ boys coming in. We don't know if they've got clearances. We don't know if this information, which is not supposed to be released, could. I'm not saying it has yet. But, it doesn't have to be malfeasance if you just put out this information and the bad guys are looking at, well, why, we kind of thought this company, why is this company getting this much money? Yes, those programs, those things can be exposed. And again, that's a relatively small part. But at the same time, why would these guys need to know how much each one of you guys got in a tax return last year? Mm-hmm. What's that kind of personalized information? And what we found about one of them, he's a coder, 25-year-old coder, might be a great coder, but is this the person that's going to help determine what's true or not true or what should be released? And again, I'm trying to get all the facts first. If they'd come up and said, this is what we want to do, we could have discussed it, argued about it, but to kind of launch in, and this is what's happened with the whole DOJ effort. I thought at first, gosh, maybe there's a way to find more efficiency. When I was governor, we got named best managed state. Count me in for efficiency. Count me out for chaos, or count me out for putting our national security at risk, because I think, unfortunately, we're seeing that starting to happen.
Senator Warner, thank you, as always, for joining us, and good luck with the floor fight. I hope you make enough good tuna melts to get you through the night. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah. His takes
next
are
time I come on, do I get to wear the non-tie outfit the next time?
Oh yeah.
We're in LA. We're not in the Senate with you. You have to wear the suit. We don't have to wear a suit. We left government. We started a podcast. I put a suit on my dead body.
Look again. Amy Klobuchar cannot get enough of you guys.
Yeah, she likes it.
Oh,
she forgot her purse.
It's a nice bag.
She forgot her purse. Senator Warner, thank you.
Thank you so
thanks,
much.
Guys.
All right, we get a question from our listeners, our wonderful subscribers. How is it determined that Russ Vought was the worst nomination that deserved this treatment versus all the other awful people that they've let through? Well, from what I understand, I think it is because the messaging around Russ Vought, Project 2025, and the budget cuts that Vought has planned for when he becomes OMB director, unilaterally perhaps, Head Start, Medicaid, like every program and benefit that Americans count on that would really piss people off far more than even some of the crazy stuff that all of us who pay close attention to politics have noticed over the last couple of weeks. When if Russ Vought gets what he wants, then programs are going to start getting cut that really impact Americans who don't even pay that close attention to politics. That's my guess.
Yeah, I also I'm trying to be, I feel like we spend some time on Pod Save America saying, why aren't the Democrats trying more stuff? Why aren't they doing more stuff? Why aren't they getting out there? And then we spend some of our time judging when they do and not liking it.
They're out here.
They're out here. And I just think is this a fight that could have been started on earlier nominees? Sure. But I do think everybody has been, as Warner said, have been, I don't think unfairly either, caught off guard by the sheer volume and speed and lawlessness of what they've done. I think everybody expected it to be bad. But this is shockingly bad. I don't think anybody would have predicted the day Donald Trump was elected president that within weeks Elon Musk would be in the federal payment system. No one was talking about that. That obviously wasn't a big part of his campaign website.
For season 2.
And so I do think this is a kind of everybody is trying to figure out how to fight where they have power and where they don't. This is a great moment. Let's make a moment out of it. Does that mean it was wrong not to make a moment earlier? Were there other nominees that were just as bad? Of course. There are other nominees that will do more damage, of course. But this is the time we have to make this latest fight. I'm glad they're doing it.
I thought Shots appropriately set expectations, right? Which is this is about showing a fight. This is about sort of organizing people around the country. But let's be honest about the limitations of their power, right? And which is why we were asking them about the funding fight, the debt ceiling. They do have some leverage, but if Republicans in Congress hang together, or if Donald Trump decides that he's above Congress, doesn't need Congress, is going to take the power of the purse from Congress, then we have to fight other ways than just expecting the senators and members of Congress to do anything.
It's bleak, people.
Yeah,
what can I tell you? We don't have any power. We don't control the courts. We don't control Congress. We don't have the White House. So, as much as we all love yelling at Democrats, they listen to us. They respond on Twitter sometimes. It's a huge fucking waste of the time a lot of the time. So, these guys are trying something. We want to help promote that and keep organizing.
Yeah, I do think it's we have a question.
Someone for us?
I was going to say, are you guys ready to go to Senator Andy Kim?
Absolutely.
Yes. Senator Kim, how are you?
I'm
Good
doing
to see
okay.
you.
Hey, you shoot down those drones yet?
Damn it.
Yeah,
Get those drones?
They're not a problem anymore. I took care
Isn't
of
that
it.
amazing?
Look at that.
We were under assault by alien/Chinese drones, and now they're gone and we're safe.
Yes.
They were
Ever
Iranian
since I
too, I
came
think.
into
And
the US
Iranian. Yeah, I forgot about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, look, I told them, we got to be a little careful in New Jersey because we are the state that believed that the War of the Worlds broadcast by Orson Welles was true. So we don't have a great track record sometimes, but, this time we're going to get it right.
Nice.
That was the first fake news.
So, Senator, you worked at USAID at one point. When people ask you, all right, what's this agency, foreign assistance? Do people really, why are we spending all this money on foreign aid? What does USAID really do? How much does this really matter? What do you tell them?
Yeah, well, look, I tell them, about my experience. Yeah, you're over 20 years ago. I stepped through the doors at the Reagan building to work at USAID, my very first day working for the government. And I try to tell the American people, USAID is not charity. This is another tool in our toolbox to be able to engage. Now, for instance, think about Secretary of State Rubio. He just took his very first foreign trip this past weekend, went to Panama, and tried to deliver a message saying, we don't want Panama to be able to take this foreign aid and resource from China. We don't want them to have that kind of influence over Panama. And then he comes right back and then, works to gut USAID, which is our best tool to try to counter the Belt and Road Initiative from China and other foreign aid. This is a tool in our toolbox. It's always been this trio of defense, diplomacy, and development. And I worked at USAID, the Pentagon, and the State Department. I've seen this in action. And look, this has always been a bipartisan approach too. I mean, there's a reason why USAID is at the Reagan building, is because Reagan himself talked about the importance of development and humanitarian assistance as part of a tool. And he even said, that those that are trying to spout that this is, not good for America or this is money taken away from Americans, he said that that was just blatantly false.
Senator, how do you wrap your head around the disconnect between this administration being full of China hawks who talk about the U.S.-China competition in existential terms, who rant and rave about the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative and how they're making inroads in all these places, and then come home and gut USAID? Do they understand how stupid and self-defeating this is? Is it just politics? Like, what do you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, there's just absolutely no coherence to this. I mean, I was in the rotunda when Trump got sworn in and listened to his speech. I mean, an inauguration speech that it was so noticeable how little of it was about foreign policy. What you could tell is that Trump's main concern isn't about our national security, it's about his security. And it's about his own projection of power. It's, the thing that comes to mind the most is during the campaign, he kept using this phrase, the enemy from within. And that really just lingers with me. That's what he's worried about. Whereas we should be worried about our competition abroad, our competitors, our adversaries. The only time he talked about China at all in the inaugural address was about the Panama Canal. The only thing that people are talking about foreign policy-wise on Capitol Hill right now is Panama and Greenland. Like, what happened? We have such real challenge right now in the world. This is the most chaotic and dangerous global moment, certainly in my lifetime. And we are taking our eye off the ball. We're being distracted because of Trump, and our national security is at risk because of that.
So we're in the middle of this. You're in the middle of this floor fight to try to draw attention to Russ Vought. We have Elon Musk parading around the government in ways that are and shutting down payments and things in ways that are pretty illegal. How do you tell that story in a way that connects with people? Because I do think one of the feelings people have is that people don't care, that they don't, that talking about foreign aid is a trap, that people don't care about process. I've seen certain pundits be like, "Oh, Democrats can't be the defenders of institutions. You're defending an institution." So how do you talk about this in a way that you think helps us make our case?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this because I'm getting ready to be able to speak on the floor. I don't get to speak till after midnight now. Being one of the new people, I was told that that's the tradition that the newbies have to go in the middle of the night. I'm not sure that's actually a tradition, but I'll jump on it. But
they're razzing you.
You've been had.
Shots is razzing you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna have to have a conversation with him. But look, what the people that I talk to back home in terms of what they're paying attention to, what they want is stability. What they want is to be able to live their lives and not have to worry about this all right now. They want something that resembles governance. And yes, look, they were upset about the status quo. So was I. There's a lot of brokenness in our country right now, and I get it. We cannot be the party that looks like we're trying to defend the status quo. Trump presented himself as a disruptor. And I think we need to show that this is not at all what he was talking about. This is not at all what people thought that they would get. They wanted somebody that was going to try to lower prices. Look what's happening right now. When we see the tariffs, when we see him getting, focusing on all the divisive partisan issues, that was a lie. Everything he said before about wanting to focus in on the families. He's promising a golden age, but it's clearly a golden age for his billionaire buddies, his donors, for all these people that were sitting up on the platform in the rotunda for his inauguration, not for anybody else. And so I think that that's what's connecting right now. So yes, I talk about my work at USAID, and I understand that the vast majority of Americans don't understand fully what USAID does. But I will say that they do understand the word service. And despite everything that Trump's trying to do to try to demonize public servants, to try to demonize, our government and people that are working within it, ultimately the American people understand, whether it's our military or our civilians, that serving this country used to be something we considered an honorable thing. And I think that sense of service is certainly what I've been appealing to, and I do think that it's cutting through. So we got to keep at it, but show people that we're focused on what it is that they're concerned about, which is lowering these costs, helping them be able to live their life without having to worry about constantly the dread that something horrible is going to happen next.
And Mark Warner hasn't tried to make you any kind of tuna sandwich or anything, because that's I know you're kind of relatively new. You're getting hazed here. If he hands you a tuna sandwich, you don't have to eat it.
He was just walking up to me just now, and I just kind of like pretended I was on the phone.
That's smart. That's smart. That's the right way to handle that guy.
They're too soggy.
Yeah, I was
They're
just
too
like,
soggy.
Mark, I'm sorry. Yeah.
How you liking the Senate compared to the House?
Yeah, you know, I
gotta
have
smell
to say,
better.
well, here's what I'll say, and this is what I told, I told my sister the other day when I was talking about this work, is I said, I know there's a lot of craziness happening right now in our country, but what I try to take some solace in is that I know that there is no job in America right now where I can have a bigger impact on trying to shape the kind of America that my 7-year-old and my 9-year-old are going to grow up in. So, like, I'm going to give this everything I got. I have more tools in my toolbox than I did in the House of Representatives. I represent 9 million people now instead of 780,000 people. And I have a vote in the room to be able to try to shape it. Now, not always able to get the majority, but at least I have a vote, 1 of 100. So I'm going to do with that as best as I can. But it's going to be tough, and we won't win every single battle. But, you know, look, I will be a U.S. Senator far longer after Trump is no longer president. And I will do my best to get through these next 4 years and steer America. But I will be here far after that to try to rebuild and make sure we go in a better direction.
All right, let's cut the shit. You're about to be on a desert island. You can either choose one senator at random or one House member at random. You're going to be stuck on the island with one random senator or one random House member. What are you choosing?
Do I really have to choose anyone? Can I just be by myself?
No, you will have to be with one of these two people.
You got better odds in the Senate, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that I would probably choose someone in the House.
Wow, interesting. Wow. Could get mace though. That's crazy. That would be terrible.
Yeah,
that whole thing's a bathroom.
I deeply regret my answer now.
Yeah, great answer.
We do have a question, an audience question for you.
Asked in the live chat. Okay. Is this live?
Is this live? Yeah.
Yeah, this is live.
This is live.
That was
it'd be real weird if it's just for you.
We do have another question.
Okay.
And that is, I'm scrolling to it now, but it's what should regular folks do right now? I think there are a lot of people wondering what action to take.
Good question.
Yeah, we're getting this a lot. What should regular folks do? People are like, how can I help? What can I do right now?
Yeah. No, look, I mean, a couple of things here. I will say, first and foremost, like the fact that they're paying attention, the fact that they're asking the question is a good thing. It means that they're keeping up with this. You know, I had this line that I've been saying a lot lately where I say that I believe that the opposite of democracy is apathy. And, you know, I really feel like that is key right now. We cannot give into that helplessness. On top of that, look, I mean, there's different litigation that started up. You know, Just Security has on their website, a great tracker, the litigation that's out there, the organizations that are leading that litigation. If people want to support those organizations that are, you know, getting involved in what's going to be very long and difficult and probably expensive litigation. And look, I think about this because in 2017, when we were going through this in the first Trump administration, I was, you know, regular citizen Andy Kim, never thought about going into politics. But I stepped up because, you know, I wanted to run in the 2018 midterms because I knew that taking back the House of Representatives was absolutely necessary for us to be able to move forward. We're in that same place too. So us here in the Senate and the House, we're going to try to do our best to navigate and mitigate some of the problems that are out there, but we have to be able to start to mobilize towards 2026. And, you know, there are already some candidates stepping out there. Already people, I mean, like in New Jersey, we're doing a terrible job in voter registration right now. Republicans are out registering us right now in New Jersey, elsewhere around the country. Let's get out there and start mobilizing. I get it. People are tired. There's a lot going on, but we have to power through.
Senator, thank you for joining us, and good luck with that midnight shift.
Thanks so much. Take care, everybody.
It's interesting to think about what the opposite of democracy is. Because I guess on like one axis it would be about the amount of order there is. So then in one sense the opposite of democracy would be kind of chaos or anarchy. But then on another axis,
whatever we're in.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say. Autocracy and fascism would be on the other axis. Apathy would be on the kind of participation level. There'd be sort of a multi-dimensional space with a few ways in which you can be the opposite of democracy, which is interesting to think about.
Do we need a
I have to go to the
whiteboard?
bathroom. I'll be right back.
Yeah, go.
Wow. Lovett.
Hey.
Lovett is going to the
First
bathroom.
to pee.
All right. You guys
Don't
have
poo.
questions?
Vote.
Hey,
Someone lock the door.
for everyone in the chat, if you have questions about John Lovett while he's gone
fire away.
that you don't want him to hear the answers to,
This is
now's your
live.
time. Now's your time. Let's see. I'm just gonna go to some of the questions.
Give
Tommy.
us some chat questions.
I
think they know by now. There are a lot of we're holding the floor because Russ Vought sucks.
I got. so, someone said, "Sorry, did anyone ask why some Democrats are voting for these extremely unqualified cabinet picks?"
Yeah, I mean, this is going to piss people off. I think a lot of Democrats and Republicans generally approach an administration with the feeling that the president gets to pick their team, and with sometimes limited exceptions, will vote for people who are qualified. Like, I don't like Marco Rubio. I don't like his politics. I don't think he's the brightest bulb on the tree, but he got a 99-0 vote, and I think he's someone who's qualified to be Secretary of State, and I can understand why they would vote for him.
I would say, like, with the exception of Fetterman, because he's just a wild card now. That we
Likes
have a
to
wild
troll,
card.
yeah.
If any of these nominees could have gone down because of a Democratic vote, then I think those Democrats would have hung together and voted down the nominees. I think it's like I would vote against all of them, but
yeah, I'd vote against.
And many Democrats are voting. Like Chris Murphy, I think, is voting against all of them.
Yeah, I can understand voting against all of them. I can also see, for the sake of bipartisanship, for the sake of trying to show some independent thought, voting for people who you think, you know what, I don't agree with that person. I don't like what they stand for, but are they qualified for the job? Are they capable of doing the job? Sure, I can see that now.
I got to get a couple questions into you
Fire away.
Before Lovett comes back. Is John privately really sensitive about how bad he did at Survivor? And follow-up, how does John Lovett feel about the fact that I had no doubt he'd lose Survivor?
Oh, wow. Is he privately sensitive? It's hard to
He's
tell.
really not. I don't think he is.
Well, he covers it up with comedy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he does cover it up with comedy.
So there's that. I don't know. We'll ask him when he gets back.
I think he's, honestly, for Lovett,
I think he's doing fine.
I think he... I think he's been, he's handled it with good humor.
Relatedly, did you all have a betting pool on how far he'd make it? Somebody asked.
We didn't have a betting pool. I think both John and I assumed by his demeanor that he didn't win, but that he did well enough to justify why he seemed kind of cocky. Now, in hindsight, it was all a ruse.
It was a ruse.
It was all an act.
He lied really well.
He lied really well.
Or just kept it hidden.
Yeah.
There. Shh. There's some questions.
You think I'm stupid enough to think you guys won't be? I'm not sensitive about Survivor when we're not talking.
Were you screaming in the bathroom?
No, I actually
Yeah.
forgot my phone.
What a not
I
sensitive
forgot
move.
my fucking
What a
phone.
not sensitive
I forgot
move.
my
Poo
phone.
vote.
But you know what? I
Don't
do.
poo
But
vote.
Saul was out there. I was like, what the fuck are they saying, Saul? And I think he felt conflicted because he doesn't want to be a narc.
Wow,
he doesn't want to be a
you
narc.
You just doged Saul?
Yeah, I did. Saul's been, hey, Saul, buckle up. You've been fucking doged.
Ahem.
I'm
So,
sorry.
guys, we've got Senator Jeff Merkley with us.
All right, Senator Merkley.
Hey, greetings, everybody.
How are you,
Hi,
Senator?
Senator
Hi.
Merkley. How's it going?
I'm fine. I must say I'm very jealous. So I'd love to go on Survivor. So
Yeah, be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you wish for because you go on Survivor, you're the first voted out, and then you got to put on your calendar 6 months from now, everyone's going to make fun of you. That part of it was tough. But I'm not sensitive about it. Hey, if anyone's telling you, Senator Jeff Merkley, that I'm sensitive about being the first voted out on Survivor, you tell him I'm not. I'm clearly not. Nothing about this reads sensitive.
we will and
Hey,
all your
hey.
Great.
How do we stop Russ Vought?
Well, that is the issue here, right? Because he is the most dangerous nominee. Folks have been focused on the Defense Secretary nominee or Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence, but the really most dangerous person is Russell Vought, the chief engineer of the Trump train, who doesn't believe in following the law, doesn't believe in following the Constitution, because after all, his opinion of the Constitution might be different than the Supreme Court, so he doesn't need to follow it, and the president doesn't need to follow it. And once that foundation of law, foundation of Constitution is gone, how do we function as? How do we not be an authoritarian state at that point?
You've been in the Senate a while now. I say a while. It's since 2009. I guess that's when we went into the White House. So it's been a long time. How alarmed are you overall? Like, how have these first 3 weeks matched up with your expectations of what they would be?
Oh, it's all much scarier than I anticipated. Even despite Project 2025, we didn't really believe that there would be 100 executive orders just unfolding, or that just hours after taking the oath, the president would say, "Hey, the 14th Amendment, birthright citizenship doesn't matter," or 1 week in from the inauguration day, the president would shut down payments to a huge swath of programs, basically a massive impoundment. We thought we had this battle with Nixon. Nixon certainly lost that battle. The Supreme Court reinforced it. They reinforced it again in 1996 when the line item veto was vetoed by the Supreme Court. And it's like, are you really, like, how can you possibly function as a legislature if the law is only a suggestion, which is Russell Vought's position?
Senator, last night, President Trump announced the U.S. policy towards Gaza, which is ethnic cleansing of the Gaza Strip and then, I guess, permanent U.S. military occupation of Gaza. What was your reaction to hearing him announce that at this bilateral press conference with Bibi Netanyahu?
Well, my first reaction is I'm sure it was a big shock to Bibi to hear that proposal. The second is it's a crime against humanity to force 2 million people out of their home. And the third is if we want to interrupt this cycle of hate and violence, there has to be a concrete pathway to a Palestinian state, and that's what the president should be championing: is an end to the cycle of hate and violence, not what is essentially a humanitarian crime of the first order.
I mean, if you were to actually go through with this plan, wouldn't it
No.
require some sort of congressional authorization for the deployment of troops or funds to facilitate the ethnic cleansing of 2 million people and, I guess, housing for them somewhere else? I mean, presumably there would be a role between today and this going through where Congress could block some of this, right?
Well, I would hope so. And the president as commander in chief can often order troops around the world, and there's different levels of conflict that, in general, under the War Powers Act, the president can engage in for a certain amount of time before Congress has, the ability to say no. This has to stop. You need to have a declaration of war. You need to have a war authorization by Congress. But the president could do a lot during that period of time. I just don't believe that it is a serious proposal. It is not the future that Israel wants is for the United States to own Gaza. I don't think they would want to be associated. Well, maybe Netanyahu possibly, and some of his far right cabinet with moving everybody out of Gaza, but that would set them up in kind of the first tier of international criminals to participate in such a thing.
What is an area that you think Trump and Elon are coming after that is not getting enough attention? What are sort of future fights that you're concerned about?
Well, we're assuming that the battle over AID is the first effort to test the boundaries of what they can get away with. I mean, the law says a reorganization has to come through Congress, and they've broken that. The law says you can't impound funds. They've broken that. I just came from a meeting with the World Food Program. The World Food Program is very concerned about their ability to make sure the payments come through in a way that allows them to continue doing their work in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Sudan, and Syria. It looks somewhat promising right now, but there's still a lot being held up, particularly with in-kind goods. So the AID is like a test case where the law is being broken. How fast can the courts move to remedy that? And will the president even respond to what the courts find, or just say they're going to keep doing what they are doing until they can appeal it all the way to the Supreme Court? Who knows? But then what comes next? Is it the Department of Education? Is it the Environmental Protection Agency? And So while the courts are still arguing over AID, maybe one of those gets hit very soon. I wouldn't be shocked if within days suddenly we see a massive reorganization of the Environmental Protection Agency designed to end the ability to say test toxic chemicals. That is a major responsibility of theirs. Realize Russell Vought has directed particular ire against the Environmental Protection Agency. When he was talking about those who work for the government should be treated as villains or come to recognize that they're villains, he went on in the next sentence to talk about EPA. So that may be the next target.
Senator Jeff Merkley, I don't want to be negative. I think you do great on Survivor, and I think you should do it. And thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you. Can we just have a Senate break long enough for me to coordinate that possibility?
Yeah, it's only 26 days now. You do it in August. Good luck. Good luck. Good luck.
Especially
Good luck
if you
out
get
there.
out as early as him.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. Make lots of friends out there.
Thank you and take care. May we save our nation.
Thanks. All right. So again, the number's at the bottom of the screen if you want to call and don't know. It's not a telethon.
It's not a telethon. It's not a telethon.
I hear we have our next guest. Again.
Do we have a next guest?
Is to Vamp. You guys are.
Oh, we're the
next guest.
We're the Vamp.
Are there any other audience questions? I'd like to hear another question from the audience. Honestly, guys, great questions.
Can I read you guys a tweet while you're
Sure.
vamping? Senator Marco Rubio tweets, Secretary Marco Rubio tweets, I will not attend the G20 summit in Johannesburg. South Africa is doing very bad things, expropriating private property, using G20 to promote solidarity, equality, and sustainability. In other words, DEI and climate change. My job is to advance America's national interests, not waste taxpayer money or coddle anti-Americanism. So America's top diplomat is cancel culturing the G20 instead of making the case.
One of the countries is doing, yeah.
I'm imagining was his MAGA handler.
Oh yeah, you read about that?
Yeah. Apparently Rubio has like a MAGA handler in the State Department that just sort of watches him the whole time and makes sure he puts out statements that clearly don't sound like him.
Bathroom breaks in 15, Marco.
Hey,
sit down.
Freedom is back, baby. Freedom is back.
What is the South Africa thing all about?
There's a question of whether the government is trying to take land away from white farmers. Basically, ever since the fall of apartheid, almost none of the land that was owned by a lot of white people at the time has gotten to anyone else. So that's
I saw
the
that Elon
question.
was very upset.
Elon's very mad about this as a South African. So,
All right. Why does it feel like the Dems are so far behind, even though they've been publicly shouting about what would happen for months?
Well, we lost the election.
Yeah, it's
kind of binary.
So I think I've been thinking about that feeling. I don't know that I totally agree with how that was phrased, but I understand the feeling. And I joked about how we make fun of Democrats when they're not speaking out. Then we sort of do theater criticism on how they are speaking out. And the truth is, right now, if Democrats do everything right, which is fight Trump at every turn in the short term, while thinking very smartly and having the right conversations how to rebuild in the long term, what that will look like for a while is losing. That's what it's going to look like. And for me, the question I have is, why does it feel like it? Why does defending the Constitution feel like a trap? Why does it feel kind of like, don't people understand? Like, these classification rules are serious and they mean a lot. Hey, some of these institutions are not perfect, but they do good things. And I think what I'm thinking about more is not just how do we fight Trump in the short term, and not just how do we make a case for these issues, which we need to be doing. It's how do we build a democratic movement where the leaders of that movement have credibility, and so that when they say to the country why certain issues are important, enough people hear it and enough people believe them. Because I think we have a really big credibility problem, and we have to do two things at once, which is rebuild our credibility and build a large movement while also fighting Trump at the same time. And it's just really hard.
Hey guys, we have the senator from the great, beautiful, wonderful state of Michigan in the chair, Alyssa Slotkin.
Slide that camera. There she is. Almost. And a little further back.
Hello, Senator. It's great to call you Senator. That's like some, rare good news.
I was so bummed. I was in Ohio while you were campaigning for Slotkin.
We had a great time.
Yeah, and all the candidates I campaigned for didn't do so well.
He's a Buckeye.
Go ahead, John.
I'm sorry that you were in Ohio, period. I just,
Wow.
whatever you.
Yeah.
Nice.
No, and listen, I know what you mean.
Yeah. Senator, the last time we saw you, what did we do? We were at a nice house. You did a GOTV rally and a garage, and then we went out to a farm. And you did another rally there. You were just running all around Michigan at that point. You just got your bus wrapped, I believe.
Yeah, we had our RV, Pork Chop 3, that was with us at the time. I was trying to lure you guys into the RV. And then we did your show in Ann Arbor that night.
Yes,
It was
that was
awesome.
great.
That was fun.
Yeah, and then the election happened, which was less fun, but good.
Yeah, I was trying to go for a good memory. You know?
Senator, I was watching you question Pete Hegseth during the hearings. I thought you did an excellent job, and I don't know if it's because you're new to the Senate, it seemed like you were asking questions with the purpose of getting answers, which doesn't always happen in these hearings. What's your sort of your strategy? What was your thought behind in these hearings, how you approach the questioning?
I mean, I think for me, you know, I don't love a lot of things in a lot of these nominees' background. I don't like the salacious details that I've heard. You know, no one feels great about those. But I've tried, as a Democrat that now just won on the same ballot as Donald Trump, to focus on the issues that are both strategic and irreversible, right? The things that, like, if we change them, the country is just a different place. And so my questions were not about his past. They were about how he's going to respond when and if the President of the United States asks him to do something that contravenes the Constitution. And I think I've made that a theme across all of the nominees that I've been talking to. They pledge an oath to the Constitution, not to a king or to a president, any one person. So I've tried to just be more strategic. You know, Trump is flooding the zone right now, and we're in it. We're in the thick of it. So I've just tried to bring some analytic rigor to what I'm going to get engaged on, and strategic and irreversible is like what I'm trying to do.
And when some of your other colleagues give a 7-minute speech and then leave 30 seconds for the nominee to answer, what do you think their strategy is? No, answer me.
Plead the fifth.
I'm answering. Fifth. I'm asking the questions.
You know, I heard a lot of feedback from that questioning and others. Because remember, I mean, Michigan is definitely, I mean, again, it just elected Donald Trump. It's a purple place. So people know that I'm not going to agree with Donald Trump, certainly on everything. But they do expect me to be reasonable and civil and practical. And so giving a soliloquy and then not giving time for an answer is not what Michigan voters expect of me. And so, but you know, these days, people want to go viral. They want to have their moment.
Senator, you know, you worked at the CIA for a while in the Department of Defense, so you have an intel background, especially with respect to extremism in Iraq. I'm curious what you make of the announcement last night from President Trump that the policy of the U.S. is now to ethnically cleanse and then occupy the Gaza Strip. How do you think various extremist groups in the region will react to that news, and how might they use it to recruit new members, et cetera?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, first of all, what he's proposing is illegal and offensive and impractical. And given how many Arab Americans, Palestinian Americans we have in Michigan, you can imagine it was a bad response, and it should be. I think the second part of what he said, to me, was even more amazing, which is that U.S. troops should occupy Gaza and help rebuild and police it and do all that stuff. This is the man who, you know, kind of made a big stink about these long wars that we were in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I don't know a single American who's looking to get embroiled in another conflict zone in the Middle East. And so, you know, as someone who served 3 tours in Iraq and watched us for many years have failing strategies that were devastating and resulted in so many Americans killed, not to mention Iraqis. I thought that part was amazing to me. And I don't know if he said it and he's serious. I don't know if he said it on a whim. I hear through the grapevine he wants to win the Nobel Peace Prize for solving the Middle East. Go for it. You know, God bless you if you can do it, but that is not ethnically cleansing, and moving people out of the Gaza Strip is not the way you start that.
I know that a lot of Democrats' offices have been just sort of flooded with calls from constituents who want Democrats to fight harder. And obviously, it's tough because you guys all have limited power right now since you're in the minority. But at the same time, you know, as you've said, like what Trump is doing and Elon Musk is doing is pretty extreme and potentially illegal. So how do you balance that, and what are you saying to folks?
Yeah, you know, I'm working actually on a document right now because we need to be able to answer this question for people who want to be engaged. They want to be in the pushback, the fight, but they don't know the best way to do it. I personally would say, you know, protesting other Democrats isn't going to get you very far on actually dealing with the problems. So I've started to think about it in 4 categories. Obviously, there's legislation and appropriation. That's the kind of thing we're doing tonight, overnight, just delaying, complicating things, pushing back on their nominees, putting holds on nominees, really kind of kicking it up, which is very active discussion right now, right? On sort of how to put sand in the gears, all culminating in the leverage we are going to have around the March 14th deadline to form a new budget, right? They're going to need Democrats to pass that. So to me, we're building towards that. Then there's the legal options. And I want to emphasize, like, there's a lot of work that's now kicking off in earnest from different legal organizations. And if people want to get engaged, what we were hearing today is the importance of telling real life stories of people who are impacted by these, in many cases, illegal decisions, and contributing to the cases that are being put together, particularly by Democratic attorney generals. So how do we make sure people have visibility on those lawsuits, can donate to organizations if they want to help pay for those things, like contribute personal stories? So, you know, many of us are meeting with our attorneys general to like figure out how to collaborate and tell those stories. Number 3 is communication. I mean, to me, this is where certainly your listeners can almost immediately have the best response, which is, you know, for instance, Michiganders are not down with Elon Musk having their personal private information, right? Their tax information, their Medicare information. They may not mind what he's doing to look at the government, but inside the knickers of every American citizen, no likey. So why don't we just have a neat GIF, campaign that exposes that Trump is being led around by his nose by Elon Musk, right? Let's just ratio on the internet a bit on that to push back, because the only thing that's going to get Donald Trump to change is when the public turns against something that he's doing. We've seen that. And then lastly is midterm elections. Like, you want to know how you can change the situation in Washington? We need one of the 2 houses in Congress at least. So find those congressional campaigns. We know which seats they are, and get invested in flipping those seats in a very like ruthless and prioritized way. So those are the 4 ways. And then what we're doing is just building them out and kind of making a toolkit for how citizens can get engaged.
Senator, we asked your colleague, Andy, there are aliens over New Jersey, Kim, this question, and I want to know what your thoughts are, which is, you were also in the House. You're trapped on a desert island. You're going to have to be stuck on that island with either a random House member or a random member of the Senate. You can't choose neither. Are you choosing a random House member, or are you choosing a random member of the Senate?
Whoa, what a question. I mean, I think Senate.
Wow. Interesting.
But man, said it. I think said it.
Interesting. I think that's correct. I think you're going for older, but he chose younger and crazier because he chose House.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, we can have a deep dive on that, but I think I enjoy the seriousness of the Senate, but I miss the faster pace of the House. And this moment, I think, calls for movement. You know, I've been called recently this week by one of my senator colleagues deliciously impatient. And
Sounds
I'm
like something an
fine.
older man would say.
It does sound like that.
Hate that.
Does sound like that.
Love it, no likey.
Oh, well, we're glad you're there.
Yeah, we're glad you're
in the
there.
Senate. Thank you so much for joining us. And what's your shift tonight? Are you going to be there too late?
I have a 6 a.m. shift.
Ooh.
Oh.
Oof.
Well, actually, you can go to bed maybe. Can you go to bed and then come back?
I chose it.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
That's
okay.
perfect.
Good
Can I
call.
jump in with a quick question from
Sure.
the audience?
Oh,
Senator?
sure. Oh, so we have one question from the audience if you have time.
Is there a point in people calling their senators if they know they agree? I worry about overwhelming them if it's useless.
Look, I think it's always good to be engaged. It does. We had our phone lines kind of crash because of that engagement. I think what I'd ask is, what we're finding is people who are calling their Democratic representatives and not their Republican representatives. And that to me is confusing. Like they own the House and the Senate right now, and they are the ones who are not standing up as Trump moves and to do things again that contravene the Constitution. So I have no problem with engagement, but like, are you going to the people who control the keys to the castle? Don't let them off the hook. And I think it matters that they hear from people. And I think for me, look, I'll be honest, when we get a campaign, like an email that's like a cut and paste, and we get 400 of those, okay. But when we get an actual constituent who took the time to call, write their own thing, that has a different impact on me.
It makes a lot of
Good
sense.
advice.
Senator Slotkin, thank you so much.
Thanks for joining. All right, guys.
I do think that's like an important point too, which just like, yes, Trump is terrible. He will abuse his power. Don't dare him into doing it or assume certain things aren't worth doing because you know he's going to ignore it, right? Like, and with Republicans, yeah, they're craven weasels and they're going to probably go along with Trump, but have like force them to explain it and don't assume they will, or at least call them as if they're persuadable. Like treat these people as if they're persuadable, or at least continue to be shocked by every time they do something shocking, even though we've gotten so used to it. That's my feeling on it.
She said knickers?
She did. She did.
Those are pants, I believe.
Those
They
are pants.
These underwear, no?
Are they? The New York
It's
Knickerbockers?
underwear. Yeah, it's underwear.
I was impressed with the range
sure about that?
because she did
it
say
is.
knickers and then talked about doing a ratio on Twitter.
Yeah. That's a
That's
a Biden to AOC range.
Dictionary.com knickers, loose-fitting trousers gathered at the near your calf.
Really?
Well, they don't count.
I think you're. I thought knickers are underwear.
I've got a question. What should I ask my swing district Republican congressman?
Oh, that's a good one.
Does he like skydiving?
Wow.
Oh, we're live. We can't cut this.
I think focus on the Elon piece of this. Why is he okay with an unelected billionaire rampaging through U.S. government records and making decisions on behalf of the president?
Yeah, and you know why that's a good idea is because I saw last night, I think, Jared Golden, who's a Democrat from the who represents Maine's 2nd District, which Trump won, is a pretty conservative district. He's maybe one of the most moderate House Democrats in the whole House. And he was like, you know what? My phone's been ringing off the hook, and people haven't talked about Trump. They've been talking about Elon, and they are angry because they did not elect Elon to go there and do that. So
Push on an open door, people.
Yeah, push on the. That's exactly. Any other? What else you guys got? Any other
Are
questions?
you guys ready for Senator Sheldon Whitehouse?
Absolutely.
Oh, he's here. All right.
That's
Let's do
lots
it.
of Rhode Island questions. Hello,
Senator Whitehouse. How are you?
Oh, we can't hear him.
Uh-oh. We got him muted.
Uh-oh.
Oh, there
There
he is.
we
There he
go.
is. There he is. There he is.
Somebody
I see
flipped
that
the
for a
magic
second.
switch.
What's going on the floor right now? How are you guys doing?
We're doing pretty well. There's a lot of interest, despite the fact that this creepy character vote is going into a position that not a whole lot of people are familiar with. I don't know that a whole lot of Americans know who Shalonda Young was, who was the OMB director for President Biden. But Vogt is going into that very same position, and he's very, very dangerous. And I think we have the chance to make a really good point about how, while Elon Musk is the erratic, eccentric, corrupt billionaire who is messing around in the government, Vogt is the stooge of the erratic, corrupt right-wing billionaires who have been sort of funding the whole MAGA operation.
Yeah, he seems like the freak to Elon Musk's geek. You know.
Oh,
That's
look
what I
at that!
think.
Look at that! I like that.
Yeah.
Good show too.
It's pretty wild.
If someone, we got this question actually from one of our subscribers, which is like, why Vote? Why did you guys pick Vote? And why is he so scary? And what do I have to worry about with Russ Vought at OMB?
They picked Vote because he will do exactly what the creepy right-wing billionaires who've been funding him for years and years and years tell him to do. And he's willing to do really ridiculous things. He's the guy who stopped the funding for Ukraine that led to Trump's impeachment, and that was determined to be a violation of the Impoundment Act. He is unrepentant. He says that he's not going to follow the courts on this. He's going to follow his legal counsel, who's an interesting character in his own right. He's a creepy guy named Mark Paoletta, who was one of the figures in the painting. If you remember the painting with Harlan Crow, the billionaire, and Clarence Thomas, the kept justice, and Leonard Leo, the court fixer, the other person sitting up above Leonard Leo in the picture is none other than this Mark Paoletta. So he's part of the same billionaire cabal that was funding the billionaire gifts program for the justices. And now there he is, the number 2 to Vote. So this is true billionaire capture of the real nerve center of the American government.
So you were Attorney General of Rhode Island, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I know stuff. So can you talk a little bit about what you hope states can do and what Democratic attorneys general have the actual power to do? Like how much can federalism help us?
I think separation of powers really helps us a lot, and federalism helps get access to the judicial branch of government. If the judicial branch of government is willing to stand up and do its duty, it can make up for the fact that the executive branch has been taken over by Musk and MAGA, and that the legislative branch of government has just taken a powder because no Republican has a spine when it comes to Trump. So that leaves the judiciary. And the attorney generals have really good cases in a lot of these matters. It's a question of timing. How much can they destroy the agency before we can get an enforceable order? But we've already won on undoing the freeze. I think they're going to make a ton of progress on the Impoundment Act when that becomes relevant. I think these firing notices and the resignation proposals are actually fraud in the inducement because as a matter of law, they can't perform on their side of the contract. They don't have the money or the authorization. So it's a rich target environment for attorneys general.
Senator, I believe you went to law school with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., correct?
Did, yes.
Weirder now or then? What was the vibe? Were we finding dead bear carcasses and like hiding them places then? Or was this a new thing, a new hobby?
Much more of a challenge now. There was no like anti-vax stuff. He was very idealistic. He was very smart. He was very charismatic and engaging. He was a very good surrogate for Teddy Kennedy when Teddy was running for president in that primary and was all over the country doing things like that. He was somebody who I thought was destined for really great things, and I had a lot of admiration for him. So it's difficult for me to vote no, which I did, against him for secretary because he continues to subscribe to these conspiracy theories.
Did you stay in touch over the years? I mean, were you able to kind of track the changes over time and have an explanation for it? Because I do think
it's one of those situations where, you know, we stayed somewhat close, but we have friends who stayed very close, and they're just as surprised and disappointed and in some respects even horrified as many of them.
Did you have any conversations with him around the hearings, his confirmation hearings, that left you feeling like, okay, you know, I'm going to vote no. He's not going to be a good nominee, but maybe he won't be quite as extreme as some of the statements he's made in recent years.
Yeah, I mean, in the hearing, I specifically invited him to step back from some of the more extreme anti-vax stuff and to promise that he would not denigrate vaccines that were proven to be safe, and that he would not denigrate mandatory vaccination when mandatory vaccination was the way to protect the public. And of course, he didn't answer that at all. So there you go. There was also some Rhode Island stuff where we're getting kind of hosed by CMS, but that's very specific to Rhode Island, so I won't belabor that here on your show.
Speaking of Rhode Island, Connecticut has their pizza, Massachusetts has their clam chowder. Do you really think Rhode Island style calamari is enough of a brand? I feel like there's not. I don't know. What's the big food and where and how can you help?
First of all, you need to come to Rhode Island and try a good Rhode Island style calamari because it will change your world.
Oh wow!
And Massachusetts and that kind of gloppy chowder stuff that they do.
Hey, watch out,
Excuse
pal.
us.
I'm not kidding. It's glop. There's a real Rhode Island chowder that is clear, peppery, full of clams and potatoes.
I've had a Rhode Island style chowder.
That's not a Massachusetts thing. That's a Rhode Island thing.
I've had the Rhode Island style. It's not bad.
Sir,
it's
you
not
need to
bad.
hide the
Not
flavor of the
bad.
clams. They are
Listen to
disgusting.
you.
Have you been to Scales and Shells in Newport?
Yep.
It's a great spot.
Nice.
Check it out.
They have a good clam pizza if you want to really experiment.
Clam pizza.
That's a
kid you not.
Connecticut special. Now you're coming for Chris Murphy's territory. That's a New Haven special. Get your own food.
That's what I would say to those New Haven folks. We started it with the clams. Go Hogs.
What's your shift tonight, Senator Whitehouse?
I'm on 9:15 to 9:45, I think.
Wow, that's
Oh, that is
seniority
a-
for you.
that's senior- I was gonna say,
look,
That's
you
been
put
there
your
for a while.
stick Andy Kim at 2 a.m. You're rolling in after coffee. Pretty nice. Must be nice to be Sheldon Whitehouse.
No Red Bull for you, just some calamari into bed.
At 2 a.m, don't you worry.
All right, Senator. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Good to be with you. Thanks so much.
Take care.
Get some good food tips. Should have asked about Taylor Swift's place in Newport. Does she
Yeah.
still have that thing?
I think so.
Is that an old?
I'm
kind of hungry for calamari right now.
I didn't get to it, but I also in the back of my mind have just a memory that Providence gay bars are just out of control.
You're thinking of Provincetown?
No, I'm not. Thank you for asking, but I'm not.
Most Providence bars are just kind of.
But there's a gay.
Mafia
Well, I
fronts,
know, but I don't think that doesn't. I don't know, but I don't think the gay bars are immune.
I have no idea.
We would go. We would take the bus from Worcester to Providence once in a while, from Holy Cross, and go out.
Got
in
some
Providence
wholesome
once in a while.
fun. Got some good wholesome
fun from
yeah. Bingo.
mostly
Caroling.
Foxwoods.
Oh, I've been to Foxwoods. Fox is great. Is
Well,
that
that's
it?
in Connecticut,
That's in
but-
Connecticut.
All right.
Oh,
So the YouTube
shit.
audience agrees with Lovett on knickers. First off, most important point.
I googled it.
Let's just all stop
I'm
saying
just
that word.
saying.
Let's all just put a pause on that fucking word. It just gets me. Every single time. It's like a jolt.
What's the next one?
We have a question from the audience about how Democrats can keep up sort of their public presence and pressure in this moment.
More of this. This is a good start. You
Well,
know, trying
I
to
agree.
create some churn. Look, we suffer in the Senate from having an older caucus, and I think we need more of our younger, more digitally native members of Congress and senators to be out more, making more stuff on TikTok and social platforms in the hopes that it'll be interesting and new and different and weird and go viral. Pick some fights. Like, doesn't have to be stupid stuff. Go on Fox News.
Yeah.
I don't know. Think about ways to just reach new people. It can't just be MSNBC.
And look, like we can't expect even if they were out there all the time and had the perfect message and were amazing, like they can't do it alone. And I do think that, you heard, I forget who said it, but like maybe it was Shots, that people are showing up, 700-800 people. And I think all of us need to like get out there and make a lot of noise. And I do. And the biggest challenge is breaking through to people who are like, fuck it, I did the election and I voted and now I don't want to pay attention. And I hear there's some crazy things going on, but yeah. And you just got to be vocal and tell people in your life what's going on. But you're right. Like we're going to have to look, you can fight them in court. We have leverage around the funding fight and the debt ceiling, and then we have to start looking at elections.
I do think it's also like this is a small thing, but like, we wouldn't have a bunch of senators willing to like go live with us and deal with our serious and unserious questions to try to draw attention. I mean, it's like a small thing, but like I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that coming to us and saying like, hey, let's do something, let's try something.
Let's take some swings.
And like it's so, you know, Shot said it too, but like the answer is going to be a big movement of people. That is ultimately how not just we win elections, but build the attention. I mean, in the first Trump administration, it was a lesser version of this. It wasn't as extreme version of this. But Trump had the microphone, and there were very few times where we were able to wrest it from him. But one of the ways we were big protests. They did. I remember in the early days of the Trump administration, the March for Our Lives, the Women's March. People like joke about the pussy hats now, but like it was one of the few times when you were able to draw attention away from Trump and control the microphone. And so much of what we're trying to do now is compete for that microphone, and it's very, very hard. And we're not going to always be successful because we don't have a lot of levers, but we got to try.
And you know, if you're not part of the Vote Save America community yet, you should join. We still have the Anxiety Relief Fund, which you know helps candidates and causes every month. We try to pick the places where your donations are going to have the biggest impact. And you know, the VSA team, they're thinking about what to do and what the next steps are, and they will have plenty for you to do. So check out VSA. And look, I think that's our stream for tonight.
Yeah,
we'll be back here at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Got to close my Jeff Merkley Wikipedia, close my Sheldon Whitehouse Wikipedia.
Unbelievable.
Good conversations.
Anyway, you know, tune in again. We'll do this again
This
if
was
you guys
great.
want. This was fun.
This is fun.
Streaming
Thanks for
tomorrow.
all your questions, too.
Yeah, they
Everyone
were
who
good
asked questions.
questions.
Sorry we didn't get to everyone. I just saw someone propose a new segment. Lovett takes John and Tommy to gay bars in every state.
Yeah, that's a
loud applause in the studio.
That's an A block, and then that's a D block.
End the stream.
That's it. That's a good time. That's a good place to leave it.
Thanks, everybody.
Good luck
This
with
was
Russ
great.
Vote. Good stuff.
That was fun.